Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and for this one, we're going to be doing an early game Bandit build bleed guide. This should help a lot of new players, or if you're looking to make a second character, this one should be a lot of fun. We're going to concentrate on the Bandit swords, the Bandit class. First things first, obviously pick the Bandit class. We're going to take an extra golden seed for that extra flask. This guide should be really helpful for everybody too, because I'm going to try to explain everything the best I can, and I'm also going to show the map frequently so you can follow along as far as this guide goes. So be sure to make sure that you get the maps along the way so you can follow exactly where I am. First things first, we're going to start here at Gatefront. I'm going to show where Gatefront is on the map in a second once we grab the map after we talk to Melina, but this is where you get your horse. This is where everybody ends up when they start out. It's to the right of where you start. It's the general starting area, that first section, that first encampment of enemies that you're going to see. This is where we're going to start at Gatefront. And we're going to equip the Spectral Seed once we get them, because at this point we can make things a lot quicker by having our horse. That's our mount. Once we have the mount, we're going to grab the map here and we're going to start heading south-ish towards the Aguil North site of Grace. Once you do that, as you're following along here and we have the map, we're going to be heading towards the ravine that's in Aguil Lake. There's a ravine in the middle of it. There's a cave that we're going to want to enter there, and there's an NPC invader that we're going to have to face. Don't worry, I'm going to show the map at the beginning of end of clips, at the beginning and at the end of clips as we're going along here. We're going to be headed towards the ravine. This is where we went for initially. At the end of this clip, you'll see the map as well. So in this ravine, there's going to be an NPC invader that's going to attack you. However, you will have help. Hunter Yura will help you with this fight, making it substantially easier to take him down. And since it's 2-on-1, this isn't an overly difficult fight for you. And if you started as the Bandit class, like I recommended at the beginning of this video, you're going to have a weapon that does bleed build up already. So if you're able to get in enough hits on him, you can proc bleed on him, do a lot of damage to him, take advantage of Hunter Yura attacking him, and you'll take him down very quickly. Then, after taking him down, we're going to head into the cave that's right here. I believe I showed the map where it was. If you need to pause the map at any section, but yeah, this is where it is. You can just pause the map if need be. We're in the ravine in Aguil Lake. We're going to go into the cave. We're going to open the chest there and fight the boss that's there. However, halfway through, he's going to give up, and we're going to end up forgiving and forgetting. This way, we can use him as a merchant, and we can fast travel back, get some items that we need from him. He sells some important items for us, and it's going to make our lives a little bit easier. So after forgiving and forgetting, you can actually fast travel back to him to open up as a merchant. Once Patches is a merchant, there's a couple things that we're going to want to grab from him. And again, he's not too difficult of a boss fight. If you are for some reason having trouble though, do what I did here, and you can actually use the Reduvia that just dropped from the NPC invader that you defeated, and the Ash of War on it, Bloodblade, can absolutely destroy Patches and easily bring him down to half HP. Now that we've opened up shop as a merchant, after we sell these runes, we're going to grab the 3 gold pickled foul foot that he has, because we're going to need those for runes. And does that entirely end our business in Murkwater Cave? No, it does not, because there's another chest in here that's a transporter trap, and we're actually going to take it because it's going to help us get to the other section of Limgrave, and it's going to conveniently put us in front of the other map in Limgrave so you can follow along this guide with ease. Once we're in the other section of Limgrave, do not engage with the rune bear that's there. It's one of the toughest enemies in the game. I can't stress that enough. They're incredibly difficult to fight. Not something you want to battle at this time. So grab the map here, and then you can follow along from here on. That's where we are in Mistwood. Then we're going to head straight north. I'll show the map again here shortly until you reach the 3rd Church of Marika. So when we're here, and I'm going to show the map in a second, so don't worry about that. You're going to know exactly where we are. The 3rd Church of Marika has the Flask of Wondrous Physic in it. You're going to want to grab that. That's something that you definitely want to grab. And then you can actually put the health in the flask at the site of Grace to use it for extra HP for the time being. That's going to help you out a little bit as we move forward. Those of you that are familiar with my other videos have a general idea of what direction we're going to be heading in. We're going to be heading into a direction that leads us to a dragon in Caelid that we can farm. You can actually farm this dragon infinitely. You can get a lot of runes out of this. It can make you very powerful very early and make you powerful very quickly. Outside the back of the church, there's going to be something called the Spirit Spring. You almost can't miss it. It's basically telling you to go in this direction. You're going to go up this. You can actually use these to jump, and once you jump up, you can actually only use 2 of them. You can use 3 of them, but 2 of them can get you to the top entirely. you're going to use 2 or 3 of them to get to the top here, and we're going to head towards the direction of Caelid, which is east once we're up top. Then as you head towards Caelid, you want to stay to the right. I can't stress that enough, but the main thing here is staying to the right. If you go to the left a little bit, you go to that church that you might want to go to, you're going to get invaded, and this time you're not going to have help. So for this instance, we're going to avoid the invader there. She doesn't really have anything that we need. She drops a talisman, but it's not a talisman we're going to need for this build. So we're going to stay to the right entirely and head towards the Rot View Balcony, Site of Grace in Caelid. Once we're at this Site of Grace, and be sure to grab it. If you rest here, by the way, your maiden might end up taking you back to the Round Table Hold. It's a section of the game that you're going to have access to where you can upgrade stuff. If not, just keep heading east. I'm going to show you where it is on the map as we go here. We're going to head towards Dragonbarrow, which is the eastern section of Caelid. As we continue on here, there's eventually going to be a section where there's cliffs, and you're just going to jump over it and head towards Dragonbarrow. That's basically going to split the section so that you're in Dragonbarrow. Be sure to grab the first Site of Grace that's in Grael's Dragonbarrow, because we're going to want that Site of Grace. The map is not far ahead. Past the Grace, there's a path. You're just going to keep heading straight on that path. Don't divert at all. Just continue to go straight, and you're going to be able to find the map for this section of Caelid. And being able to grab the map here is going to help us a lot, because not only can we follow along to where we are, but we have the map for another section of the game. Basically, as you go along in Elden Ring, you should make sure that you collect every map you can possibly collect, and that's where we were at Rot View Balcony. This is where we are now, and we're going to be heading towards that giant dragon in Caelid. That's going to give us a lot of easy runes. I'm going to show you some stuff involving this dragon that's going to give us a lot of levels early, and not only is it going to give us a lot of levels early, but it's going to make it very easy for us to use the build and setup that we want to use, because we're going to be going for the Bandit curved swords. They can do a lot of damage with the jump attacks. We're going to be able to get a Blood Ash of War on both of them as well. This is definitely one of those early game builds that's going to be really powerful too. There's not a ton you can do in the early game as far as being completely overpowered or ridiculously powerful, but this is one of those setups where when you grab these swords, you do this build, and you continue on the game, these are 2 swords you're not going to have to throw out. You can use them all the way up into the late game, through the late game, and eventually do massive damage with the build and setup we're going for. So, as far as this dragon goes, there's actually a bug with the dragon. Make sure you grab the grace behind the dragon. That's really important, so you don't have to do the grace grabbing animation that may actually stop you from utilizing this. Then take out your trusty Reduvia, which you already have the stats for as the bandit, kill the dragon, but hop immediately back on the horse, book it back to the grace, and rest as fast as you possibly can. You'll get the runes for the dragon, but you'll notice that the dragon, who's actually technically supposed to be permanently dead, is still there, yet we're sitting on 65,000 runes. It's going to be a very easy way to level up here, and here we go. This is what we're going to do with our stats. If you want to pause it, we're going to be going up to level 30. We're going to be investing in Vigor, Dexterity, Endurance, eventually Arcane as well. Since you can fast travel back to where you got the Flask of Wondrous Physic. It's in the church above Mistwood. And then you're going to go south completely on that road until you get to Fort Height. We need to be here because we're going to want the Ash of War that the enemy at the top of the fort has, because he's going to drop Bloody Slash. It's going to allow us to put bleed on the weapon. This is where we are on the map as well, and where we came from the church, down that pathway right here, and then get to the top of the fort. We're going to have to take on the tough enemy up here. I'm going to show you where to get summons in a little bit, but if you happen to grab them already at this point, you can actually use them in Fort Height, which might help you. And then, in general, you want to get to the top as fast as you can, kill this guy, take him out quickly, which I think actually clears the fort in its entirety. And he's going to drop that awesome Ash of War that's eventually going to allow us to put bleed on both Bandit curved swords, which we're going for now. Now we're going to be heading towards the Weeping Peninsula. Go back to the Geel Lake North Site of Grace and follow the trail down south all the way to that grace that I showed on the map. And that's the first Site of Grace in the Weeping Peninsula. And then we're going to go and curve around. If you saw where I came from the grace, we're going to go around, and don't worry, I'll show the map again. We're going to head towards a church where we're going to be able to farm for the 2 weapons we want, the Bandit curved swords. There's basically an entire wraparound here as you continue on. You're going to be wrapping around essentially the entire Weeping Peninsula as you go off the side. Eventually we're going to cross a bridge and whatnot too and head towards that church. And once again, there's going to be a farmable enemy there that drops the swords we're looking for, that are pretty much good for the entirety of Elden Ring. They're awesome weapons to have. We cross the bridge here, continue on our way to the church. And this is when things are going to start getting fun too, because we're going to start putting a build together. A little bit of a build here that's going to allow us to do bleed, a little bit of damage too, something that's really fun in the early game, and as I mentioned, something that's going to make us very powerful late game as well. And as you can see, we're heading towards that church that's right up there, and we're going to continue on till we get there and can rest at the site of grace for the area that has the farmable enemy that holds the Bandit curved swords. And as you head up to the church, as I mentioned here, once again, we're going to go for that Bandit because this is where we're going to be farming. I'm going to be honest though, it took me about 20 minutes to get both of these. I'm going to show you that in the video. Can take anywhere from just a couple minutes, seen people say up to 20 or 30 minutes like myself in this instance. It's not a terrible drop rate from these guys, but it does take a little bit, so just be prepared for that. Now, outside this church, just literally around the corner from it, is a single bandit that has 2 bandit curved swords, and he can drop them. He can drop, I think, 1 at a time, and what we're going to do is we're going to go around the side of the church. We're going to have to kill him, rest at the site of grace, and then kill him again until we get the drop we want. For the first drop, it only took me around 5 minutes. It wasn't too bad. By the way, you have to attack these guys when they're on the ground again a second time to kill them completely. And then, of course, occasionally they're going to drop human bone shards. But what we're going here for is the bandit curved swords, which again is around a 2% drop rate. So our first one, where we're starting here, we got around 36 minutes in the game at level 30. Not too bad. It was only a couple minutes after I showed that clip that I was able to get the first one. The second one took a little bit longer this time. The reason it took me a total of 20 minutes is because the second one this time took me about 15 minutes more. Like I said, I had the first one about 5 minutes in, but after some farming, we went all the way up to 56 minutes in order to get both. Now I'm going to show you on the map, opposite of where that church is, all the way south is a merchant we're going to need to go to because we need the lost ashes of war that he sells. You can also grab the smithing stones when you're here. I'm going to show it on the map here in a second. If you're wondering why we need the lost ashes of war, that specific item, it's so that we can duplicate Bloody Slash, because now that we have 2 of our bandit curved swords, there it is on the map, and there was the church all the way down south. I guess a little bit southwest. And now we can go back to the smither at the round table hold because we're going to duplicate Bloody Slash. We want to have 2 of these. We want to make sure, because we can't grab the wet blade yet, that we would need to put blood affinity on these. So for this, we're going to need 2 Bloody Slash so we can put blood on both of these and start with a really powerful bleed build in Elden Ring. Now remember Agheel Lake? We went there earlier. We fought the NPC invader at the beginning of the game. We're going to go back there. Instead of going towards the ravine, we're going to go a little bit north from there. I believe it is north, and it's going to be Limgrave tunnels that we're going to head to. I'm not going to show the entire tunnel system, but long story short here is there's going to be smithing stones, which you need in the tunnel system itself, and the enemies here also drop it. If you want to upgrade your weapons to +3 for both, you're going to need a total of 24. For me, I'm just going to go for 12 so I can upgrade each one to +2. And again, not going to show the whole tunnel system because this video is long enough. Just go through it. There's a boss at the end that's very easy as well. Get as many smithing stones as you possibly can. Once you have those, we're going to go back to the round table hold. We're going to go back to the round table hold because we can use the smither there once again to upgrade our weapons. At this point, you can go to +2 on both. If you got enough, maybe even +3 on both to get more damage, more bleed out of the bandit curved swords. Upgrading your weapons here, you'll notice that they do more damage and they have a tiny bit more bleed as well. A little bit more bleed at this level, not too crazy, but enough to make a little bit of a difference. So we're going to want to upgrade them. It's something you definitely want to do. Next up, we're heading back to that dragon in Caelid and Dragonbarrow to farm him one more time. After we kill this dragon, I'm going to show the stats that you're going to need here again, what we're going to do with our stats. But once again, we're going to be heavily investing in Vigor, Dexterity, and Arcane, because simply those are going to be our main stats for the build and setup we're going for. And once again, we're able to keep the dragon alive and get 65,000 runes. And once we open up the stats here, you're going to see where I put the stats. And once again, if you need to, you can pause this on screen to see where I'm going with this. But generally speaking, once again, Vigor, Dexterity, Arcane. Now we're going to be going back to Patches in Murkwater Cave. Leave 5,000 runes, by the way. You're going to want to grab Margit's Shackle. It's an item that can stun the first boss. The first boss, by the way, Margit in Elden Ring, and I know there's a little bit of spoilers here with the first 2 bosses if you're going to follow the video to the end, because I do take on both of them. They are very difficult to get used to if you're new for Elden Ring. Margit, especially the first boss. The second boss for me was a little easier, but a little bit difficult. So being able to stun the first one definitely helps. Now, as far as spirit summons, you may have already done this, but the first church you ever see, if you go back there, you can get spirit summons from Rune, who eventually has a quest line later on. Very likable character, but you can get the spirit summons from her, and then you'll be able to use them for boss fights and for tougher battles. Then we're going to be grabbing two things. You may want to pause that map spot real quick, but we're going for the Ash of War Golden Vow. The Ash of War Golden Vow can be put on something as simple as a dagger, which you can use for 40 seconds. You'll get 10% more damage and defense. This is an important Ash of War to have because obviously it increases both your damage and your defense. And something I like in Elden Ring, you're going to learn about me if you're new to this video, to this channel, is I like buffs because they make fights a lot easier. So after this, we're going to put the Ash of War Golden Vow on a dagger. Once the Ash of War is on the dagger, you can actually use that and then switch back to your Bandit curved swords, and that 40 seconds will stay. You'll get the buff, and you can reactivate it when needed. And of course, the dagger doesn't weigh a lot, so we're not too worried there. Also, we're going back to the Weeping Peninsula for one thing. I'm going to show it on the map here, but we're going to be going for the Faith tier as well, so we can do some buffs, like Flame Grant Me Strength, which I'm going to show you where we can grab that, and that's going to increase damage for 20% physical damage for 30 seconds, which is a really good buff to have. It's going to help a lot in a build like this where we're doing physical damage primarily. There it is on the map there, zoomed in. That's the spot you're going to need to go to grab the Faith tier. Now on to Flame Grant Me Strength. This is actually at Fort Gale, and now Fort Gale, if you go to Rotview Balcony, it's to the right, you can't miss it. It's the only fort I think you could see from that area. It's very large, something you can't miss. Then you're going to have to go around that fort to the side of it. There's going to be two enemies, two chariots in the back with Flame Grant Me Strength, the spell that we're going to need, or incantation rather, for the buffs that we want to do. It's a really good benefit to us as well because obviously given the fact that we're going to get 20% more physical damage, that's going to buff us early, and that can stack with that Ash of War Golden Vow for 30% more damage in total while also getting 10% more defense from somewhere in the realm of 30 to 40 seconds between both. It's absolutely awesome to have them early. Can do a lot more damage, can make the game a lot easier by applying some buffs. Give yourself a little extra damage to make boss fights a little bit simpler in a game where they're very tough. This is definitely something that you're going to want to do as you move along. Now we need a seal, so go back to the Round Table Hold, and the Twin Maidens that are there, they're actually going to sell you the Finger Seal, and we're going to grab that. It's going to tell us that we can't use it, but that doesn't matter. We have the Faith tier, which we're going to equip. The Faith tier is going to give us 10 more levels of Faith for 3 minutes, which will allow us to do Flame Grant Me Strength. Once we have that equipped and whatnot, it is time to take on the first boss in Elden Ring, Margit, who I admit, even though this was done in one try, does beat me up a little bit. We get a chance to show off the build. It does go a little bit better with the second boss in this video, but as you're going to see here, the build does work quite well. We're able to proc bleed, get some damage in, and we're able to stun him too with Margit's Shackle. Let's get into this fight. So this fight is going to be a little bit difficult, but as I mentioned, we're going to start by stunning the enemy. Now, don't mind me, I miss these jump attacks sometimes, but we're mainly going here. For me, it's going to be A and LB, because we're going to be using the jumping light attack for both, which allows us to get in 4 hits, build up bleed, and build up damage in general. One thing you're going to notice about Margit in this fight is he's very aggressive and has a series of delayed attack combos. This can actually make him very difficult, and hence why I almost get killed here in the process. But as long as you're able to land these jump attacks, you're going to do substantial damage to him, especially if you upgrade your weapons to +2 or +3. Get in the bleed as well, a couple of bleed procs. This again is an early game build, but you're building towards something that eventually is going to be able to shred every single boss in the game. Another suggestion I have for Margit in general is to pay attention to the combos that he does have, because some of them will lead into another combo, and that could be really dangerous. The openings aren't as clear as they normally are. If you're a fan of Dark Souls, you're new at Elden Ring, or you're still trying to figure out the game and maybe you wanted to try a side character and you haven't fought Margit much, just be aware of that. His combos in general can lead to other additional combos, or he can stop for a break, allowing for you to attack. He's a very inconsistent boss in that sense, and obviously he has the delayed attack combos, making things a little bit more difficult for us. But as you can see there, he went down, not too bad. We're able to do enough damage and bleed. Now, I'm not going to do a whole thing for navigating Stormville Castle. I'm going to leave that entirely for you. You should experience Stormville Castle in all honesty on your own first, and it's just an honest thing to state that. As far as the game goes, it's an awesome legacy dungeon you're going to want to explore. But I want to get you one talisman for this build. That's the Claw Talisman. So from the Rampart Tower Site of Grace, you're going to work your way all the way up and then around these ledges. So we're going to head towards a talisman that, honestly, a lot of people may not find otherwise. And this talisman is going to boost our jump attacks. I'll show it on the map. I think I did once already. I may show it again. And as we're going to work our way down and around here, we're eventually going to get up to this area that has enemies and a little bit of a perch, and it's going to have the Claw Talismans. We do have 2 talisman slots, and in Liurnia of the Lakes, there's actually a talisman called Rotten Wing you can get that will increase your damage in the early cave section of the map. There's a cave, one of the first caves you'll run into, that has that talisman. But I didn't want to go outside Limgrave or around Stormville Castle to grab that. So for this, we're just going for one simple talisman, the Claw Talisman for now. And as you can see, we went around here, and eventually we're going to go up this ladder. By the way, I recommend killing the enemies first, as they almost knocked me off the ladder, but I did decide to go all the way up, and the Claw Talisman is up here. If your primary thing is jump attacks and getting those 4 hits on each jump attack, then the Claw Talisman is really going to be the pillar of this build. This is basically what holds it together. Eventually, you'll get something called the Raptor's Black Feathers, which is a piece of armor that will increase your jump attack even further. But you're going to see in this fight a little bit of a difference, as my jump attacks are now doing more damage, and Godrick goes much better than Margit did. And the main thing here is to make sure that all 4 of those hits hit, so you can build up bleed as fast as you possibly can. Now, this isn't a late game build, and we don't have the Ashen War Seppuku, which you'll get later on, which obviously can build up bleed a lot faster, but we do have Bloody Slash on both. We do have bleed on both early, so we're still able to get good damage out of it, and obviously decent bleed buildup. And Godrick, not too bad. He's much more predictable than Margit is. His attacks are generally slower, wider windows to dodge stuff. Obviously for me, it only took 1 try for both. Technically, though, Margit probably should have killed me. If you remember that in the clip, I was close to dying there. As far as Godrick goes, much less of a threat for me. I've had many no hits on this boss before. In this instance, I got hit, I think, a few times. Not the best at the jump attacks, but as you can see, we're able to shred his HP fairly quickly. We're not even using summons, and he goes down very fast. We also got a posture break here, too. If you don't know what a posture break is, it essentially allows you to get a critical hit, which will do more damage. But for this instance, since we're going for bleed buildup, instead of taking the crit, the time he's down, I'm just going to take the opportunity to do more jump attacks, build up more bleed, and get more damage. The other thing about Godrick is during his second phase, don't be afraid at all from running up to him as you saw me run up to him. Avoid the fire and run up to him, but also don't be afraid of him in general. He has very few attacks that aren't punishable. And pretty much every attack, which is a complete pillar opposite of Margit, is punishable afterwards. Whereas Margit has, as I mentioned, those combos that can consistently go into other combos. Godrick just leaves a lot of openings after his attacks. Take advantage of that, hit him a lot, get the bleed damage in, get the regular damage in, and shred him quickly. And there it is, we did it, the Bandit build early game guide. I know a lot of people on my channel were asking for this one. I know a lot of people in general just might be helped by this. I hope I helped people with this. Tried to make it not overly long, tried to make it powerful, and obviously I left the final result build, the really powerful Scavenger Curve swords, which you'll get later on, in the description below, which has spoilers and can absolutely shred. By the way, there's a Discord in the description too, so be sure to check that out. If you love PvE builds, if you love Elden Ring in general, if you love overpowered builds, definitely be sure to sub to this channel. Thanks for watching, everybody. Be sure to check out all the awesome builds that I have on my channel now, and as always, I will catch you guys there.